The plains of Gaugamela are filled with dust. Alexander sits in his tent, drawing up his plans. Darius, with his golden chariot, has readied his army. Traps lie hidden beneath the soil, waiting in silence. Scythed chariots gleam under the sun. The Greek mercenaries have betrayed them. Swords blaze, horses charge. Who will rise in this storm? The battle that shook the world is here. In 331 BC, the plain of Gaugamela baked beneath the Mesopotamian sun, waiting while the fate of the world hung in the balance. Alexander, a 25-year-old Macedonian, had marched in from Syria and Egypt with a weary yet spirited army, his sword still gleaming from victory at Issus. Opposite him stood Darius, the great king of the Achaemenid Empire, an empire stretching from the Mediterranean to India, burning for revenge. Darius had chosen this flat, open ground with cunning, perfect for his scythed chariots. Pits lay hidden beneath the soil to cripple Macedonian horses. His host was a human sea, perhaps 100,000 strong, Bactrian cavalry clad in gold, trumpeting war elephants, and 200 scythed chariots flashing in the sun. Greek mercenaries filled the Persian ranks, yet rumors of treachery whispered through the camp. Darius dispatched a lavish offer to Alexander: half the empire, the treasures of Susa, even his daughter, if only he would end the war. Alexander merely smiled. In the dim torchlight of his tent, he told his generals, "I want the whole world." His force was small, 47,000, but the Macedonian phalanx, bristling with long sarissas, stood like a wall of steel, and the swift companion cavalry were ready to tear the plain apart. The night before the battle, Darius kept his troops awake, fearing a surprise attack. Persian soldiers, heavy in gilded armor, sagged beneath the stars. Alexander instead sent his men to sleep while he planned until midnight, murmuring, "Tomorrow, this plain is ours." Madness or genius? At dawn, Gaugamela sprang to life. Dust billowed beneath the armies. Darius, on a golden chariot, loomed like a god, his crown blazing in the first light. Alexander, bronze helmet gleaming, soothed his horse and scanned the field. Traps waited under the earth. Chariots stood poised to charge. Greek mercenaries in Persian lines cast sidelong glances. This was no mere battle. It was a game of life and death that would shake the world. On the morning of the battle, the plain of Gaugamela awakened under the sunlight. Dust rose beneath the feet of the armies like a towering wall. Alexander, in his bronze helmet, sat atop his horse, scanning the field. Opposite him, Darius stood on his golden chariot like the king of kings, leading the mighty Achaemenid army. Today, here, the world was about to shake. Alexander's army formed its lines. The Macedonian phalanx, with its long sarissas, stood at the center like a wall of steel. The swift companion cavalry were positioned on the right wing, ready to strike. On the left, the veteran General Parmenion held the flank. But Darius had a massive force. Persian infantry filled the center, Bactrian cavalry stood on the left, and 200 scythed chariots lined the front, ready to tear through anything. Beneath the ground, hidden pits waited to trap enemy horses. The battle began in a roar. Darius signaled, and the scythed chariots charged forward like a storm, their blades gleaming in the sun, ready to shred through the phalanx. But Alexander was prepared.
With a single command, the phalanx opened like a gate swinging wide in the face of a tempest. The chariots plunged into the gaps, their wheels caught in the earth. Macedonian soldiers struck with their sarissas, tearing into the trapped machines. Darius's eyes widened. His plan was falling apart. Alexander didn't wait. He shifted his forces diagonally to the right, away from the hidden traps. Darius's Bactrian cavalry chased him, but it was a trap. The dust of the plain rose high, blinding the Persian vision.
Alexander cunningly executed a feigned retreat. It looked like he was fleeing. The Persian line stretched thin, and a wide gap opened in its center. Darius was caught off guard. This was exactly what Alexander had been waiting for. With a shout, Alexander unleashed the companion cavalry like a lightning bolt into the gap. He led the charge himself, spear in hand, riding straight toward Darius. The dust of the plain swallowed everything. The Persians were lost in chaos. Darius, standing on his chariot, tried to hold the line, but the Macedonian cavalry pierced into the heart of his army like a wedge. Swords spun through the air, blood stained the battlefield. But not everything went according to plan. On the left flank, Parmenion was being crushed under the weight of the Bactrian cavalry. His cry vanished into the dust. "Alexander, help!" The Persian riders surged at him like a flood, their golden armor flashing in the sunlight. Alexander glanced back for a moment. Darius was right in front of him, but Parmenion was slipping away. His heart pounded. He had to choose. The dust now covered everything. The Macedonian phalanx still stood firm at the center, but the Persians were pressing in from all sides. The Greek mercenaries in Darius's ranks looked hesitant. The rumors of betrayal still echoed through the camp. Darius, with his golden crown, shouted, "Fight!" But the storm of dust and confusion had taken over. Alexander, eyes sharp, charged through the chaos. This battle wasn't just of swords, it was a battle of minds and courage. Who would claim the plain?
The plain of Gaugamela was drenched in dust and blood. Alexander had struck into the heart of the Persian army like a lightning bolt. The Hetyroi cavalry, with their sharp spears, were carving a path toward Darius. Swords whirled in the air, and the cries of soldiers filled the plain. Darius, on his golden chariot, looked anxiously upon his army. The moment of destiny had arrived. Alexander was now only a few steps away from Darius. The sharp eyes of the young Macedonian sparkled. With a fierce shout, he drove his riders forward. The Persian line, already cracking under pressure, was now starting to fall apart. The Achaemenid soldiers, blinded by dust and chaos, didn't know where to turn. The Greek mercenaries, rumors of their betrayal had already spread through the camp, seemed to have lost their will to fight. Some dropped their swords, others looked back in hesitation. Darius shouted, "Stand your ground," but fear had already taken root in the camp. The Macedonian cavalry hit the center of his army like a wave. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Darius, with his golden crown, looked around. His army was melting away. Some commanders claim he retreated to regroup. Others say he panicked and fled. Whatever the truth, his golden chariot turned back. That move was like a spark in dry grass. Panic spread like wildfire among the Persians. Seeing their king retreat, the soldiers broke and ran. On the left flank, Parmenion was fighting tooth and nail. The Bactrian horseman, clad in gleaming armor, attacked like a flood. His voice was lost in the dust. "Alexander, where are you?" His forces were being crushed under pressure. But the Macedonian phalanx at the center still stood like a rock. Their long sarissas pushed back any Persian who came too close. The dust of the battlefield had swallowed everything. Friend and foe were tangled together. Chaos ruled everywhere. The Persian soldiers, who moments before had moved like a vast sea, were now fleeing toward the distant mountains. Broken swords, shattered shields, and fallen bodies littered the plain. Blood had turned the soil to mud.
They say up to 47,000 Persians died that day, while the Macedonians only lost 4,000. This wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. Darius had vanished into the dust. Some soldiers whispered that he had betrayed them, that he had abandoned the army. These rumors spread like poison through the camp. The scattered Greek mercenaries muttered curses under their breath. Alexander, his horse exhausted, but his eyes full of pride, stood in the heart of the battlefield. He hadn't yet reached Darius, but Gaugamela was already telling its tale. This was the moment of collapse, but the story wasn't over yet.
The plain of Gaugamela was now silent. Only dust and blood remained. Darius, the Achaemenid king, fled the battle with a heavy heart. His golden chariot no longer shone. With a small group of loyal followers, he rode toward Ecbatana. The cold mountain nights darkened his dreams. The empire that once held the world in its grasp was now slipping through his fingers like sand. Bessus, the satrap of Bactria, rode beside Darius. His sharp eyes and cold smile hinted at a dark intention. Along with a few other commanders like Barsantes, he whispered in secret. Darius, weary and broken, trusted them. But in the dry deserts near Hecatompylos, the masks came off. Bessus drew his dagger. Darius, with disbelieving eyes, looked at the man who had once sworn loyalty to him. The dagger plunged into his chest. The king's blood stained the desert earth. Bessus and his companions left him wounded and alone, vanishing into the darkness. Alexander, swift as the wind, was in pursuit. The Macedonian army, torches blazing, searched the mountains. Alexander was not chasing Darius to kill him. He wanted to capture the Persian king alive. But when he reached the desert, all he found was a dying man by a spring. Darius, dressed in torn robes and a broken crown, was drawing his final breaths. Alexander knelt beside him. It said he gave him water and promised not to let his blood be dishonored. Darius, with his last breath, said nothing.